Hey everyone, and welcome to Footy Talks. It's great to have you with us as always on this Thursday lunchtime. Luke, Stephen and KJ with you. A couple of great guests. Toronto FC head coach Greg Vanney is on the show. And after the start of the Premier League, Kevin Kilbane, former Premier League player, now a big-time pundit as well. It'd be great to have him.
As you know, over here, there's a tournament starting up for Major League Soccer, which is a little like a World Cup where all 26 teams are going to a different location, this time Orlando. I just want to say, maybe not necessarily your on-field experiences from when you went to the World Cup with Ireland, but maybe what did you take away from the key ingredients when you spend so much time away from home with a group of athletes that needs to be important, that can lead to success on the field?
There can be certain difficulties that being away from home, being away from family, being away from your regular environment and being on top of each other for that length of time, that can be difficult in itself. It's very difficult to get away from people. I know we spoke at the top about Roy and I think having a personality like that around for that length of time where you're really in enclosed environment, that can be difficult because these personalities are difficult to, certainly sportsmen, I think in general, sportsmen and women, they have certain traits that are difficult to manage for coaches. So that can bring its own difficulties for any coach. And I'm sure that the coaches are actually preparing for this when they get down there. But my overall experience from being away, it was certainly the best memories of my career. Growing up, all I wanted to do was play in a World Cup for Ireland. So when you get that opportunity to go and play there, you bring these memories away from you, and the certain memories that you have more off the field than actually on it at times as well, because of the stories, because of the chats that you have with certain people, the bonds that you build with certain people as well. And I think that can only be enhanced. I think any team, when they go into that sort of environment, will become stronger. I think they'll become tighter as a unit together. So yeah, I think the coaches, as I was saying before, are going to have to prepare certain sessions, get themselves right for the basics that they would have to do. Certainly, getting the teams prepared for the matches. But I think as a group themselves, within the MLS side, I think they'll become stronger and better for that.
Greg Vanney is with us today on Footy Talks. Lots of TFC fans watching this with us on Zoom or also on Facebook as well. So thanks for taking the time, Greg, to be with us on this Footy Talk show. A week closer to being back on the pitch, where I'm sure you've been looking forward to being for the last 3 months while it's been this very strange situation.
Yeah, it's nice. We've been this week into full training finally. So I'm actually this week have finally gotten into my office and I've been able to utilize the facilities. The guys have been on the field fully competing. Yesterday we played some 11v11, so just finishing up training today. We're excited. We're 15 days away from leaving to get to Florida, and then 7 days from that we'll start competition. So it's nice. It's been a process. The season was just getting started as all of this started to transpire. So we were just starting to kind of find that rhythm. You have the excitement of a new year, and then it all came to a halt. So we're trying to build that momentum again. We're excited as a group that we have a platform to start playing again here coming up pretty quickly. So we're excited about that.
For these guys, it must have been like trying to rein in giddy schoolboys on the first day back when they finally get the chance. They've been waving at each other for weeks when they've been doing the individual sessions. And now 11v11, that must be, I'm sure Stevie would weigh in on that as well. But like for these players that have been used to this sort of environment, to have been cooped up in apartments and stuff for so long, and then to just have that normality back is incredible, whether you're a player or not, whether you're just a fan going into your normal workplace after so much time away.
Yeah, I think speaking, for myself, I'm sure Steve would say the same thing. All these guys, they do this because they love it first and foremost. And, when you're taken away for that long from something that you just love to do, and these guys really get along with each other. So they haven't even had really that interaction and that camaraderie that you get used to having in a locker room and with your pals and your teammates and the guys who go on the field and compete together. When you don't have that, it just, for sure, you're missing it and you're craving it. And when they get back together, they are very eager to go. Yesterday, the scrimmage was highly competitive. I would say in the years that I've been here and we've done an inter-squad scrimmage, this was up there in terms of just the level of compete that was going on. We're still early in terms of sharpness, but it was a battle, and nobody really backed down. So you can tell that they're all ready to go, which is, it's a nice sign for us and for the staff as we continue to prepare them for this event. So.
Greg, we had you on TSN last week to talk about the draw a little bit, but for the viewers who are watching today, obviously it's a difficult draw, isn't it? I know your team was seeded, but looking at the draw, I think it's a really tough draw for you guys. I mean, obviously, I believe that you'll be one of the favourites to win the entire tournament, but maybe you can just, before we get to Montreal, talk us through the entire feelings of the draw with the three opponents when you were given DC and New England as well.
Yeah, they're tough teams. You know, what I would say about them is they might not be in some ways by those that watch the league like the top teams right now in this moment, but they are amongst the hardest teams to beat, right? And you know, they're stingy defensively. DC, again, the playoff team last year, doesn't give up many goals, doesn't give up many chances. They're very, very difficult to beat. And New England under Bruce has sort of had a little bit of a reemergence. They're a dynamic, fast press, get after you team. Again, very difficult to beat. And always, as you know, always the Montreal games are always tough. There's a little bit more emotion. There's always a little bit, no matter where any club is at any moment, and whenever it's a derby or that kind of a game, it's always a hard game. So it's a tough group, you know, and we're going to have to, the conditions are going to be tough. You know, one of the things I said that I kind of liked about our group is that the majority of our teams in the group are coming from the north down to the south. So we're all going to have to adapt to that, you know, that really hot, humid weather that we're going to be playing in. I don't think anyone's going to have a great advantage in that. We're all going to suffer through that together. So that's probably one good thing, but it's a tough group. We'll have to be ready to compete and play our best.
So where are you in the preparation, Greg? Are you getting into the specifics of the games, or are you still working on the guys, just finding that cohesive, togetherness, play? And are you thinking about your 11, or are you again still looking at different combinations before you're going to decide that?
In terms of preparation, we're focusing right now on ourselves. We don't know who we're going to play first. I haven't seen that yet. Maybe that's going to come out here quickly, but I don't know in what order we're going to see our opponents. We've already done the scouting of all of them. We have it already, so it's a matter of who shows up first. You know, we know what teams have done 2 months ago, 3 months ago, which doesn't mean they're going to do the same thing, right? When we get to the tournament. So all that's taken with a grain of salt. Our attention really over this has been on us and what you just said, which is our style and what we do and our principles and all the things that we want to go into the game with, but also it's relationships. It's who's going to be on the field together. How is this going to work with, you know, games every 5 days, 4 days, you know, obviously the conditions, and we're trying to work different relationships on the field. I'd love to be able to integrate some of the younger players into this event. We have 5 substitutions, which makes really the ability to try to adapt the game in different ways over the course of over this event. So a lot of things that we're trying to bring along, but really it's been focusing on us, and we haven't spent, you know, any time really looking at the opposition just yet, but we will when we get closer.
One of the upsides of having the downtime has been the ability for a couple of key players to get towards full fitness, in that Michael Bradley and Pablo Piatti missed the start of the season. And by the timelines that were set at the time, now would be around about the time that they would be looking to come back if everything had been normal. So as you head to Orlando, do you expect to be able to use both of those players?
I do. I mean, what I would say is both of them played in the 11v11 scrimmage yesterday. So, you know, both of them look healthy, obviously getting a little bit sharper. It's been a while for both of them in terms of when they played their last match. So, you know, continuing to just get match fitness, get the sharpness, getting used to having, like all the guys that have been off, but them just a little bit longer, getting used to having pressure from all around you and developing that awareness again, that sort of that sense that you get on the field, especially for Michael as a central midfielder. He has just this innate sense of where pressure is coming from, in addition to his scanning and looking, and building all of those habits and momentum back in. With Pablo, he's also got to connect with his teammates and get to learn, develop relationships with the players on the field. He's still got to grasp a little bit about, you know, what his role is within our team. He has, and what that feels like on the field. So there's a few more things that he's still trying to connect to, but physically he looks great. He's conducted everything from when we've come back to now, and his fitness level, he looks He looks quick, and over the first 10 to 15 yards, he's as shifty, as quick as anybody, and left-footed, which adds another unique sort of perspective for us. So, everybody's coming along. Everybody's in a good spot physically and healthy. And now, again, we're building, like Steven said, we're building our game, and we're building our relationships out on the field.
Greg, covering your time at Toronto FC, what we've learned a lot of things, but is that you're a very meticulous organization. You prepare for everything. No stone goes unturned. You talked about the players' preparation for this tournament, scouting the opponents. I was wondering if you could maybe talk about the preparation for an actual tournament, because it feels like a World Cup. And, I never forget this quote. Vicente Del Bosque, when he won the World Cup with Spain in 2010, said the key ingredient was that not one time in 35 days did anybody have a quarrel that lasted any longer than 2 minutes. And that camaraderie and team chemistry, living together for 35 days, was absolutely crucial for them to win that World Cup in the end. What kind of things are you planning on to do as an organization? Is there any data that you're looking at to prepare for this unique club environment that is a bit more like a country tournament?
Well, one of the interesting things during this break that I encountered was actually sat down and listened to a presentation and had some interaction with the under-17 Brazilian national team coaches. They prepared for the World Cup in Brazil. And just listening and going through sort of his process and what they did and the preparation and some of the planning and all of that stuff. Obviously, for myself, I was a part of a World Cup buildup and got injured right before. So I have some experience in terms of preparing for an event. We had to do that a little bit for Champions League as well, even though this is a slightly different, more confined situation. The one thing I would say that is really good for our team is our guys really like each other. And so there's not, they know each other. They know each other pretty intimately. They like each other. That will help. You're not bringing a bunch of people from a lot of different clubs and perspectives and all that together and then putting them into a confined area and saying, we got to figure out how to get these guys together. They really do enjoy each other. I will say with the events of the world recently and things that have been going on in the world, it's actually brought our team closer together. There's been a lot of real conversations within our group and guys learning more about each other and digging a little bit deeper into, experiences and past experiences that I think is helping our group to come together even more, which has been a beautiful thing, really. Just the conversations out on the field after training, they're just different a little bit now than they ever were. And we're going to continue to build on that. We think that's an important thing for us as a team, as a club, but also our role in sort of society and the game and everything is to try to take a leadership role in that. So all of those things are a big part of what we're trying to do to prepare ourselves. Then just in terms of the actual games, we're trying to run through basically a mock tournament as we go there. We're preparing. Next week, we'll get a game on Friday in the stadium under the lights, 8 p.m., which is one of the game times. We'll come back 5 days later, play a game in the stadium, 9 a.m., no fans, stadium atmosphere, just getting kind of used to that with, just running a real scrimmage type of setting. We can't play opposition right now. We have to play everything within our group. And so, but we're trying to set up the conditions as similar as we possibly can. Obviously, the weather won't be exact, but just to try to build in the rhythm. And so when we get down there, it won't be the first time and everybody will be as prepared as we can be. And then we'll take the final preparation when we get there. So
great stuff.
Greg, I'm interested to know how you've spent your time in the last few months. Has it been more about your tactics as a head coach and how you might see TFC evolve, or has it been diving into scouting and recruitment a little bit more, or indeed looking at around Europe, maybe Bundesliga being one of the earliest leagues to start, and some trends, stuff that's going on in the global game? What have you sort of put your main focus on while you've had the chance?
So for me, I would say a big portion of it is our club, short-term, long-term. And within that is sort of our progression as a team on the field and off the field. A lot of that is what steps are we taking, over the last several years. We've played long seasons and we've started early seasons. And so what we end up, and I'm pretty notorious to getting to moving to the next game and trying to win the next game. And so this has given us really a chance to take a step back, reevaluate where we are and where we're going from a technical perspective, especially reconnect with the rest of our staff and the academy and everybody that is involved in the technical side of things, and try to to just realign again and then build the next steps forward. And that's been a big part of it. We've listened to a lot of presenters. You know, we've had good fortune that through some of our relationships, we've had some really good presenters from around the world that's given us some different perspectives on their levels of expertise and their areas of expertise. We've taken some of that and we've used what is important for us and where we're going. You know, a lot of time, again, in the planning has been around our younger players and preparing them to be able to take step forward for our team. I think that over the next couple of years, we're in a transition where some of our younger players need to become not younger players, but key players in our team. And so it's time for them to step up. I've seen some nice maturity of our young guys on the field in this early part of training camp. And I think some of that is the work that has been done over Zoom and through different meetings and through this process. So it's been a lot about that. They haven't done a lot of scouting in terms of outside of the team or club. We don't have a lot of space right now for that to add in that level. So I didn't feel like that was a good use of time. It's really been, you know, a little bit on just myself and how I'm working with the players, things like that, just continuing to try to grow. It's you know, as I would hope the players, and they have done a great job, is you keep trying to make yourself better in every little window of time that you can. And that's what we've done in trying to make give the club a little bit clearer direction as we have a little bit of time to plan.
Following on from that, there's a question that Michael submitted, and he says, have there been any adjustments to routines or things done differently during this period as a result of everyone being apart and COVID-19 that will remain once football fully returns for TFC? Things that you can implement on a longer term basis in terms of training, wellness, communication, or nutrition as you move forward and you get back eventually to that normal life? Are there things you've learned now that could help you and you could still use going forward that you didn't use before?
Yeah, I think on many of those fronts, you're forced to adapt in a situation like this in many ways. And some of these things that we'll take away, you know, even we've become so adept, all of us, and we're right now having an interview on Zoom. But now with Zoom, you can actually, you know, a player could be at home and I could call him that afternoon and we could go through video analysis on Zoom and talk it through. And, you know, there's a number of things that I think we'll continue to use in that way. Obviously, from the medical side, there's things that we're going to have to continue to use, just I think in terms of guidelines and parameters that are going to exist for a while. It's just not going to change. Another thing that we've done recently that we really liked is we've grouped up players for pre-training activation and for different things, depending on their position and depending on what sort of individual things we want to develop. So they have times that they need to show up physically, prepare themselves, and they come on for individual training on the field, and then they join the group training. So that's something that has been added in, I would say, over this window. So we've taken some of that individual work and the value that we saw of the players working in those individual spaces, and now we're trying to carry it over into the team environment and not lose that. So I think the process is awkward as it's been to have guys training in a quarter of a field on their own and then working in groups of 6 and then into teams. It's really been a unique and an interesting and good process because the way I look at our players now is they're more coordinated with the ball. They've spent more energy, and we've spent more energy on them as individuals than you do sometimes in the collective environment. So we want to try to carry that on as something that has been beneficial and not lose that during when the team gets back together, not get so caught up in all the team stuff, but really keep making the individual player better in that process, which is we just have to find the time, the resources, and build it in, which we will 100% do now, given the circumstances and what we found to really enjoy and think is valuable in this process.
Fascinating stuff. Greg, you know me, whenever I like to talk to you, I have to ask you a question about tactics. I know last time we chatted, it was a bit more of a private event with some supporters groups and members groups, but this is more out to the public. I want to ask you a little bit of a similar question that we did about a month ago, and really a two-part question. I know before the start of the pandemic, you were playing Pozuelo a little bit more central in number 10 with it almost as a front two. You know, how is that going to look going forward? And is there a sense that when you get to a tournament style like in Orlando, that it will be more fixed on simplifying things rather than having too much changing from game to game?
Yeah, I do think that consistency is important. We won't also have a lot of time as a team to prepare for different variations. The good thing is that a lot of our players have been together for a long period of time, so they do have some ability to adapt. It's the way we train. But I believe there will be more consistency. We also want to find what's most efficient for us because, again, given the conditions, the heat, we're going to defend in the most efficient way possible to try to not commit so much energy to defending, so we have more energy with the ball and to be able to try to win games. And so in some ways, we use different systems to really press a team, and sometimes we will set up in a way. For example, recently we've used the 4-4-2. We found that to be very efficient defensively, covering good spaces. So we'll tend to and trend a little bit more towards being efficient in our process than necessarily being, outright just go for it and aggressive. And we need to be smart about how we approach this, because you can burn some energy fast. Some of the worst as a player, some of the worst days I've had in soccer have been in Southern Florida. Where 15 minutes in, your feet are on fire. You literally can't run another step. So just from firsthand experience, I know that these conditions can be really challenging, and we have to be really efficient and choose our moments wisely and take care of the ball when we have it and not be in a rush. And so it's a fine line. And I grew up in Arizona too, which gives you another sense of extreme heat weather. So it's trying to get our guys to realize sometimes that the game has to slow down, and we can control the game without the ball, and sometimes we can control the game with the ball, and managing all of that is going to be important in our mindset as we approach, a tournament and it's in really hot environment. So,
Greg, hopefully you're going to get the opportunity in this tournament to pick your new designated player, Pablo Piatti, a number of times. Tell people that maybe don't know him as well as you or us, like what his strengths are, what you're really excited, what he'll bring to this team, and how it'll kind of change the dynamic and maybe the way that you'll play going forward.
Sure. So Pablo is obviously a very experienced player. He's played in La Liga for many years and Valencia, big clubs. He's played in big games. So he comes in already with, the idea and the calm in his head that he understands the game. He reads the game well. He is shifty, quick. I wouldn't define him as fast, but he is at top speed in 2 steps, 3 steps. And he can hold that tempo for long stretches of the game. So as the game progresses, he tends to seem like he's faster because, again, he holds that speed. Very good on the combination at combining, very good at recognizing when to break lines with his runs and look for the ball in depth, which is something we as a team, I think, can benefit from. We've got a lot of guys who like balls between the lines. We still want more of our guys to want balls behind the back line. He has a good sense of that timing. And he's got a cultured left foot, and he has a very competent right foot. So he will go inside, he'll go outside. He doesn't have to stand next to the sideline. There's a lot of we can bring him inside into, the half channel, and he and Paz can play closer together off of Josie. There's different ways that we can use him, and he has a lot of experience in those. So for now, again, like I said, it's him quickly, because yesterday was the first 11v11 and only like the 3rd full practice that he's been in since he's been with us. So it's getting him used to, when he should be where relative to our system and our guys, so that he's reading off of us and we're reading off of him, and all of that becomes a little bit more fluid. But once that settles in, then I think he's going to have real value for us. He's capable of scoring goals off the wing and getting good balls, right? He's got that technical quality that it doesn't take many opportunities for him to put something in a goal scoring chance. So we like him, and he's a fantastic human. He just loves to work, and he's got a great personality, fits into our team seamlessly in that way. So it's been a pleasure to have him around, and now we hope to get the most out of him as we get back on the field.
Before we let you go, Greg, one of the great things about doing this show over the last few weeks has been the opportunity to get different players on to talk about their experiences in the game, but also it's often been related to the game of the week, which is being shown on torontofc.ca on the Friday night. And this week is Toronto FC against LA Galaxy from 2018, which is not to take anything away from your team and the win that night and the performance, I think known by many as the Zlatan game.
Of course, yeah.
What was going through your mind when you saw him? I mean, first off, to be up against him and to be, setting up your team to play against him, and everything else that the LA Galaxy bring with them. But also when you see someone do that as a landmark moment, one of the game's biggest superstars in that fashion, when your own fans get to their feet and start applauding, I mean, it was a pretty special night, even though that was a goal going in against your team.
Well, I have to say that I wanted to applaud too, but I thought that would be demoralizing for my group. But that was honestly, it was just incredible. And all of us have seen the things that he's been able to do But unless you stand next to Zlatan, you don't really get a sense of how big this guy really is. And for him, obviously he has a martial arts background and a lot of those things. And that was literally like a martial arts goal right there. You don't get the amazement of what he is capable of doing given his size until you are around him and then get to kind of experience what he does live. And that was, for me, one of the most incredible goals I've ever seen, just the way it's not just where he gets his leg. For me, it's how he tracks the ball, right? And he's able to track the ball and find the ball out of the air in what seems like a nothing space, and then to be able to put it back on goal. It was incredible. In terms of our approaches, Zlatan is a guy, especially now, and he probably has been most of his career, he gets very frustrated in the game and he can turn against his team. And so we felt like if we could deny him the touches that he would like to get as much as possible, not get in physical confrontations, meaning to try to compete with him for the ball, but we could just deny him as much of the service as possible, that we could frustrate him. And if we could frustrate him, then he would get on his teammates start to get a little flustered, and then you start to see a spiral for them. And we were able to get on top of the game goals wise, which he obviously didn't appreciate, didn't love. He starts to get frustrated with this team, but he's always capable of that one play, two plays over the course of the game that he's going to score. He did it to us, last time we played him at his place, he didn't really touch the ball the entire game, and he scores a back post header and they win because we lost him for one moment, one split second. So, but that's what great strikers are about. They don't need many chances and they don't need many touches, and they don't need the ball in the perfect place that they're going to find a way to put it in the back of the net. But it was, and I was actually as a fan of the game, I was actually impressed with our fans that they applauded and were appreciative of just a great play. It probably would have been a little different if we were losing, and maybe it was easy for everybody because we were winning, that they were relaxed by then. But no, it was a special goal for sure.
I remember talking to Jonathan Osorio about it, and his initial reaction was, first of all, he was furious why TFC fans were clapping at first, and he didn't know it was goal number 500. So then he found out later that it was goal 500. He goes, okay, I'll give it you. Because he looked around and goes, why are these guys all clapping? I don't care. And then he told me why. So that was, quickly, Greg, before we let you go, I know you never coached Zlatan, but if I'm sure you've coached people like that, as a leader of men, what kind of responsibility do you have to those players if they're a little bit different? Because I know sometimes you've coached, elite players, and sometimes they're wired very differently to others. That individualistic approach a little bit in a team environment. Is it just about trying to get them on board collectively?
Yeah, I think there's a few pieces to this, and Steven can chime in because he's been around these types of players and as a player, and even as a captain, you're trying to help manage guys that have those types of personalities. But the first thing I think from a coach's perspective is those players, they want to learn and they want to get better and they want to win. Like that, regardless of how the stature of any player, those three things always exist. They want to win the game. They want to feel like they're challenged as well. And obviously they want to be respected and feel like their opinions are respected in the environment. And so I think the first most important thing is, and that's been the same thing here, is that they feel like they're challenged on a daily basis, and what you're trying to do as a coach with the team makes sense. And it has them a lot of times at the forefront of what you're trying to do, right? And respecting someone like him and of his greatness, that he is the focal point of what we're trying to do. That doesn't mean that we don't have a team plan, but he's a big focal point in what that is. And he understands what that means for him, and we as a group understand what that means for him as well. And then that player has to buy into what that entails, what that means for everybody else, and what he needs from each of those guys and what we need from each of those guys, and how he can support that process. But if at any point for a guy like Zlatan, it seems like he doesn't have a very long fuse. And so it can be very quickly sidetracked. But I think if your starting point of that is good communication with him and things make sense and he can buy into that, I don't think it's gonna change everything, because the game is inherently frustrating and it's not perfect. And players in our league are still learning, and they're not players that he's used to playing with everywhere else he's been. But that doesn't mean he can't help those players in a different way. It's trying to find the most constructive way for him to be a leader. But it doesn't mean it's always going to be right? Every personality is slightly different. And I don't know, look, honestly, I don't know that I could handle him until I got into it and worked with him, and to even see what I think makes sense. I just have a perspective from the outside, which is very easy for all of us to have, right?
Yeah, of course.
That perspective from the outside until we actually really get down and work with somebody.
Thanks for your time, Greg. Really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us on Footy Talks this Thursday lunchtime. Look forward to seeing your team back on the pitch not too long now. And we'll chat soon about the build-up to the tournament, which is coming up in Orlando starting July 8th.
Great. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Do well, Greg. Thank you.
Take care.
Good times ahead for sure. Thanks, boys. And thanks to everybody else for being with us on this Thursday lunchtime Footy Talks. Also to Kevin Kilbane and Greg Vanney as well.
Thanks, guys.
Have a good week.